Alright, all I have is an 11 by 17, actually 17 by 11 document at 100 pixels per inch. If you're going to be printing this, you'll obviously want to use a higher resolution, something like 200 if you're going to be printing, but just for the sake of speed, I'll use a low resolution of 100 pixels per inch. And some of your settings might be a little bit different because of the different resolution. Alright, so first thing we want to do is unlock the background layer. So a couple ways to do that. We could just simply press Command J or Control J on a PC to duplicate that background layer. Or the other thing we can do, it's a neat little trick, you can just drag that little lock icon down to the trash, and that will unlock the background layer for you. And what you want to do is make sure that your default colors are set to black and white. So in order to make sure of that, just press the D key on your keyboard. Then you want to go up here to the filter menu and choose render, go down to fibers. Now I would recommend playing around with your settings a little bit, but you want to get fibers that look something like this. I'm using settings of variance of 19 and a strength of 34, and maybe click randomize just a few times in order to get kind of an even tone of fibers. It's kind of fun just to see what comes up. But something like, let's say something like this looks pretty good. So let's click OK. Now we want to apply a couple more filters to this. We want to blur it, so go up to Filter, Blur, then go down to Motion Blur, and we're going to choose an angle of 90, and we're going to push the distance all the way to 999 and hit OK. We're going to do another motion blur on that, so Filter, Blur, Motion Blur once again. This time choose an angle of 0 and a distance of maybe around 40 or so, and click OK. Now it's just totally blue, so it's totally gray right now, and we want it to be more of a bluish color. So at the bottom of your layers panel here, choose your adjustment layer icon and go up to solid color, and we're going to choose a nice kind of a deep blue, something like that, and click OK. And we want that blue to be below our fibers layer, so just click the color fill layer and just drag it below the fibers layer. And click back on your fibers layer here and change the blend mode from normal to, let's try multiply. Yeah, something like that looks pretty good. Now you're going to want to rotate this fibers layer so they're horizontal. So bring up Free Transform by pressing Command T on a Mac, Control T on a PC, and just rotate that in 90 degrees. And hold on your Shift and Alt keys, that's Shift and Option on a Mac, and just drag from a side handle to have the fibers layer cover the whole document there. Oops, went a little bit too far. There we go. Just hit Enter to commit that change, and then bring up Free Transform once again, and right-click and choose Warp. And let's just bring that center up a little bit, and then it'll just give a little bit of visual interest and motion to the background there. And just hit Enter to commit that. Alright, now let's work on our text layer here. So just bring up the text tool by pressing T on the keyboard. And we're going to use a font called Stencil Standard. And let's just click once and write the words COPS and hit Enter to commit that. And bring up Free Transform by pressing Command T or Control T on a PC. And holding down the Shift key and dragging from a corner handle, we're just going to scale that up quite a bit. Not quite that much. And let's just put it in the center. Something like that looks good, and hit Enter to commit that change. Now all we need is a selection of this text and not the actual text itself, because the effect that we're going to do won't allow us to use an actual text layer. So what we want to do is hold down the Command key, that's Control on a PC, and while holding down the Command key or the Control key, just hover over that text thumbnail over in the Layers panel, and you'll see your cursor changes to kind of a square marquee. So holding down the Command key, just click right on that text thumbnail, and that will load our text layer as a selection. So next we want to go down to the bottom of the Layers panel and choose the New Blank Layer icon, and that will create a new blank layer. But with that selection, we want to make a layer mask. So since we already have our selection, all we have to do is go down here to the layer mask icon and click Add Layer Mask. And that will create a layer mask that fills our selection with white and fills everything else with black. So next thing we want to do is fill this blank layer with any color. So what we can do is just click on that blank layer, not the layer mask, but the layer itself, and go up to Edit, go down to Fill, and we can choose Color. And just to prove that we can use any color, let's just choose a nasty green color and hit OK. And that will fill our layer with green. And remember, in the world of layer masks, white reveals and black hides. So our layer mask is hiding the parts that are black and showing the parts that are white. So that's why we have what we see here. Now, of course, our COPS text should not be green. It should kind of be a steel look to it. So you can grab the steel texture that I'm using in the download link right below the video, but I'm just going to go to File Place, so File Place, and then just grab that steel texture.jpg and click on Place, and just bring it in somewhere in the center, and then hit Enter to commit that. And we only want that steel to affect the COPS text right below it. So if you right-click on that steel texture and choose Create Clipping Mask, that will constrain that steel to the layer directly below it, which is our COPS text layer. So now we want to play around with this COPS layer to make the edges look like the actual COPS logo. The actual edges are kind of roughed up and kind of have a cool effect applied to them. So we're going to actually apply a filter to the layer mask. So click on the actual layer mask here and go up to Filter, go down to Brush Strokes and choose Splatter. And I would recommend playing around with your settings. I might use a spray radius of about 22 and a smoothness of 14, but you can see if you play around with your settings you'll get much different results. But something like that looks good to me. Again, your settings might be a little bit different. So click OK, and you'll see that gives us kind of a rough look there to our edge. We're going to want to alter that even a little bit more. First of all, our original COPS text is peeking through there. So let's turn that original text layer off so we don't have that black peeking through there. So just click that little eyeball icon on our original text layer to turn that off. Alright, so now back on that layer mask up here, we are going to bring up the Masks panel. So go up to Window and choose Masks, and that'll bring up our Masks panel. And we want to bring up the Mask Edge dialog box, so just click on that Mask Edge button. And these controls will look a little bit different in CS4, but all the controls are the same. I'm using CS5. And you want to play around with your settings until you get something that looks kind of like the actual COPS logo. So I'm just kind of playing around a little bit here, and I think I like something like that. Most likely you will shift the edge outwards quite a ways, maybe plus 30%. And you might bring the smoothness up and play around with the contrast a little bit. So get something, so you get something that looks something like that. And one last thing to check is we want to output it, the selection, to our layer mask and not anything else. You have a bunch of different options down here. Just choose layer mask and click OK. So that's looking pretty good. What we want to do next is let's maybe apply a layer style to this COPS text to make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. So we can close that masks panel for now. So right on the COPS layer, we can go down to Effects Layer Style icon and choose Bevel and Emboss. And let's do an emboss, and let's actually do an inner bevel. And for the technique, let's choose Chisel Hard, and let's bring the depth up quite a bit and bring the size down to maybe 3 pixels or so. Something like that looks pretty good. Alright, now you'll notice our COPS steel texture is a little bit yellowish, and we want it to look a little bit more blue. So click back on that steel texture layer, and we want to apply a hue saturation layer. So go down to your adjustment layer icon and choose hue saturation. And let's let's choose the colorize checkbox first, and that will colorize our whole thing here. Let's kind of choose a bluish color, and let's bring the saturation down quite a ways, and let's maybe bring our lightness up to just a little bit until we get something that looks kind of close to that. That looks pretty good. Saturation up a little bit. Alright, so we can close our adjustments panel there. Now you'll see it's affecting the whole thing once again, so we can create a clipping mask to fix that. So right click and choose create clipping mask, and that will constrain that hue saturation layer just to our text. Alright, now our cops is looking a little bit boring right now, so let's add another layer style to that cops text layer. Click back on your cops text layer and choose your effects layer style icon and choose gradient overlay. And let's choose a reflected gradient, and we're going to want to reverse that. So click the reverse icon, and let's bring the scale down a little bit. And you can actually mouse over to the actual document and drag that actual gradient right on the layer itself to move the gradient around. And let's change the blend mode from normal to, let's try overlay, maybe soft light, something like that. And let's reduce the opacity just a little bit. Maybe screen. Screen doesn't look bad. Yeah, maybe let's try overlay and reduce the opacity a little bit. Something like that looks good. Okay. So let's just add a few finishing touches. If you click back on your fibers layer and just go up to File and choose Place, and let's just grab a police car that I have here. So let's place that in there. And let's drag it to the center and hold down your Shift and Option keys, that Shift and Alt on a PC. Just drag from a corner handle. Let's just scale that way up there. It's just in the background, so we don't have to worry about it getting pixelated or anything like that. And let's grab our Move tool and maybe bring it up. Something like that looks good. Now the last thing to do is to change the blend mode of this layer. So with your Move tool, press V on your keyboard to get your Move tool, and with the police car layer selected, hold down your Shift and plus keys, and that will cycle through your blend modes. You'll notice up here that your blend modes are changing as you do that. And just keep hitting Shift plus until you get something that looks kind of cool. Overlay doesn't look bad. Let's try soft light maybe, and we can also reduce the opacity of that police car. A quick way to change opacity, if you're using the Move tool, you just press V, and to change the opacity, you can press the first letter of the opacity percent that you want. So it's kind of confusing, but if you want the police car at 50% opacity, let's say, you just press the 5 on your keyboard, and that will reduce the opacity to 50%. If you want 40, you can just hit 4. 30, you just hit 3. And let's say we want to change the opacity back to 90%, we just hit the 9. So those are quick little keyboard shortcuts to change your opacity. You'll notice the opacity changes up here too. So let's leave it at maybe 30 or 40%. Something like that looks good. And let's maybe do a gradient overlay on the background layer. Why not? So click back on your fibers layer, choose your effects icon, and go up to gradient overlay. And let's choose radio gradient. We want to reverse it and change the blend mode to soft light. And let's bring up the scale quite a bit too. So something like that looks pretty good. That's pretty close to finished, I'd say. Maybe one last finishing touch is to do a little levels adjustment on that steel texture. So just select the steel texture layer and bring up levels. So layer, new adjustment layer, and let's just choose levels and hit OK there. And let's just bring up the midtones a little bit. Something like that looks a little bit better. That just brighten the whole thing up. Maybe we can bring our blacks in too, just to bring some detail back in there. So all that did for us was just create a new adjustment layer. We could have also done that by going down to the adjustment layer icon and choosing levels, but this was the same effect. So it just makes it a little bit brighter. But that is pretty much it for the cops tutorial. Email me if you have any questions.